Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Had a little bit of a technical difficulty because of storms yesterday, and I thought, well, if we're going to have bother having storms, we might as well talk about the environment, which made me think this today we're probably going to. This is a little bit of me patting myself on the back. So for those who are new to the channel, don't know who I am, and what we do over here, this is a little insight behind the scenes as to who I am, what I do, and what I helped create. A lot of. So, guys, sit back, relax. We're going to talk about the cinematic environs here right now. This is what I have on Drive Through RPG. It's actually been a while since I've even touched it, but we're going to go into it. But first, of course, your comfort is the best. So please grab your snacks, put your feet up, and let's get ready to dive into our tabletop role playing legacy. All right, thanks, guys. Again, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. The link to this is in the doobly doo. As a matter of fact, you know what? I'll even toss it into the chat. And I am a extremely minor, small time indie publisher. And I spend most of my time talking about all kinds of things related to tabletop role playing games, especially pop culture and that kind of thing. But I also write. Now, mind you, my I am inconsistent with my writing, and I need to be. I both need to have the meeting of both time and energy and resources to do so. And but I thought I would go back a little bit. We had some storms here in that swept through last night and will continue to do so here in the Ohio Valley. And it got me to thinking about the environment because that's what got me into my little niche in the tabletop role playing community. In which case, I was like, wait a minute. Why don't I just like why don't I just actually talk about the thing that I write about that actually happened? And I was a little bit short for an idea. So here we have Drive Through RPG. Now, these were released, these particular books were released in rules wise in conjunction with basically Fantasy D20. It was 5th edition aside, similar. I think it even goes back to the old 3.5 OGL. I think it's compatible with that, although that wasn't my intention. But I always felt like the third pillar of exploration was not fully embraced, or it felt atrophied. Hey. Yeah, little. I think the link went out probably a little late, and I'm sure there are many people who are out there like I didn't even know the channel went live. Um, but this, if you go on Drive Through RPG and search for cinematic environs, this is what's going to show up. Hopefully, it's what's going to show up. At least it shows up for me. Something I didn't actually realize was that were listed as best Electrum sellers, which I actually didn't know. It's kind of cool. It's cool to realize that. Now, many of these books, I don't. I as the writer of them, I wasn't the primary publisher of them. So the artwork, the layout, the pricing, all that stuff is not really in my hands. I work with two plus ish other individuals that make up Critical Hit Publishing, and I basically reached out to them to see if it would be possible to have this idea. So I basically was just like, the only answer I could have gotten was the worst answer I could have gotten was no. Although I guess a worse answer than no would be hell no. But I reached out anyway. Hey, Cameron. Hey, what's up? Hey, man, what's up? What's going on there? Yeah, yeah. Um, Actually, I'll put the chat off right here off to the side because we're going to page through some of these books and hopefully just to get you an idea of what it looks like on the inside. But for the most part, I'm just going to do a talk over as to like what, why is it here? What does it mean? What's going on? That's kind of thing, and a little history lesson and maybe some slight salesmanship, I guess. So um, I always felt like in fantasy gaming that when we would take a look at a hex map and it would say like, you know, draw these jagged lines for mountains, draw a line here for rivers. Here's um, add in little, you got a black and white paper and it's like add little dots and that's what's called a desert. And then draw some little sprouts. Those are plains or swamps or something. And I never felt like fantasy gaming made me feel like I was in that environment, right? Like we talk a good game, but it also didn't feel like we were really there. So I challenged myself and was like, I wonder what this would look like. So um, did a little bit of writing, uh, talked to the guys over at Critical Hit Publishing, and was like, "Hey, I got this idea. What do you think about it?" And they basically said, "Don't think about it, do it, and join us." So across the top here, best Electrum seller. Remember, I don't remember what the Electrum sales. How many you have to have Electrum sales? Actually, let me look it up. What are the Electrum sales on Drive through through RP? On Drive Through RPG, an Electrum bestseller badge is awarded to products that have sold 251 units or more. Copper, copper's 51, silver 101, Electrum 251, gold 501, platinum 1001, mithril 2501, and adamantine 5001. So you gotta surpass these numbers by one. So it's 50, 100, 250, 500, 1,000, 2,500, and 5,000. Okay, okay, all right, okay. Um, hey Kim, yeah, doing well, just hanging out over here. So I said you started with Critical Hit a long time ago, didn't you? Was that way back in 2012 when your channel was still pretty new? Yes, yes, it was. I happened to be. It was during the. It was around the time of the breakup of the RPG Brigade, and some people were just like, "Why don't you try this thing? Why don't you do this thing?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Yeah, we do this to ourselves, right? Like a lot of times we we what is it? Humans are excellent at making predictions, but terrible at being right. So our brains put together all of our worst nightmares, like, oh well, it won't work. It's gonna be they're gonna hate me. I'm gonna feel stupid, and I did that whole thing. And I went, you know what? Let me put my big boy pants on, and just ask them how could I do this? What like basically it wasn't really more of a elevator pitch to them. It was an elevator pitch and doing it in general, and they were like, no, why don't you? If you're going to do it, you're going to do it with us. So let me page down here. This is the an example of the ones released for uh, fifth edition and Fantasy D20, because more or less 80%, 80 to 90% of it is less the rules, but we expanded it out to Call of Cthulhu. And starting here, number 3, 4, 5, and 6 are versions that were rewritten to embrace Call of Cthulhu, which has more of a modern sensibility, and the rules of Call of Cthulhu, which is like a percentile system rather than D20 system. And down here, some more cinematic environs, special collection. Of course, there are print on demand. You get PDF print on demands, things like that. I'll show you some of the innards if you want. But yeah, yeah. And the Call of Cthulhu versions are for sale on what's known as a side part of Drive Through RPG called the Miskatonic Repository. And the Miskatonic Repository is a place where people can write materials for Call of Cthulhu, and it kind of sits in its own category. Now, a lot of that was created, rewritten by other members of Critical Hit, but with my input. So it was like one was my baby, and the other ones were like, no, we need to help do this. Which, I'd rather something be done well than just be done by me. Which you got to let your ego go. Yeah, yeah. Those were the days. That's when we had there was a breakup of the RPG brigade. So like four people went over and made their own called Absolute Tabletop, and there were some others out there like Samwise Seven and oh man, I can't remember all the names. Oh man, I can't just name like a few and forget everybody else. But there's a bunch of them that were in that group and became their own indie publishers, and I kind of joined that group. So let's pick one of these at uh, decisions. Okay, let's let me see if I can find one of my files here. Okay, we'll do Grasslands. We will do. There's a book that I released. We're going to share this out instead. Um, this is the cover of the book. Cinematic Environs. That's the logo. That's what the DBJ stands for. Davabrian Jackson. That's my pen name. Um, and so better for DBJ. Instead of to get into all the complications and such. But yeah, this is the cover, and I would challenge myself to see if I could write a book about the most boring environment in tabletop fantasy role playing, and that's Plains and Grasslands. I should have called it Savannas. And in hindsight, I kept going back and forth between like, is it Grasslands or Savannas? Savannas or Grasslands? I don't know. Um, but yeah, because I was like, Savannas kind of means a certain thing, but I like the idea of just like there's like a tornado in the background. It's just completely flat, and one person just riding on a mount, maybe a horse or something. And I challenged myself to make that the most interesting thing. So here we have the credits. There's only a couple of us there. The guys over Critical Hit Publishing, Alex and Rob, work with a lot of other people. And as a matter of fact, um, for those who are familiar, what would Ander do? His channel, Woodwad. He pointed me over to Alex, who does like the layout, and Rob does editing and does the art design and things like that, and led me over to them and and expressed, "Hey, why don't you work with this guy?" So one thing led to another. So if there's any lesson I can give to you guys, it's find a niche and develop that niche would be one. Two would be the worst answer you could ever get if you ask someone something is no. And a lot of times that no is usually with an asterisk, like no, not right now, or no, I don't have the capability, but I can show you somebody else, or no, I don't think it's cooked enough. I think maybe if you go back to the drawing board and come back, it might be better, right? No's are usually never final unless you're just a straight up a-hole. The second lesson would be swallow your pride a little bit, right? Like, so I'm not that, as a writer, I'm not that good. I know I'm not that good. But I also know that I can be infectious, and I kind of use that to cover up the lack of ability because I get excited about things, and I feel like my excitement, um, it's like walking into a room and someone's jumping up and down for joy, and then you just start to feel happy even though you don't know why. And I truly am inspired by things, and I like to let that energy go to other people. It was pointed out to me that I'm like that, and I was like, oh, well, that's cool. So in the introduction of every one of these, I have something called the Rule of Three, and this opening page was the thing that got me the contract job to write for Cool Name Goes Here, um, uh, Kickstarter that happened during 2023's OGL debacle with Watsy and with Mark Tassin. He's the one that read it and was like, it just went in his mind and he just memorized. It's the Rule of Three for like skill checks and getting involved with hazards and things like that. And then I was able to have a big part. Now, Cool Name Goes Here has actually changed its name to Open Adventure, but I still miss the Cool Name Goes Here logo and stuff. But whatever. And in short, the Rule of Three is basically how many die rolls do you want to encapsulate the difficulty of doing something? Do you want to roll one roll and just make it like, whatever? Like if I read this out, one of the most important aspects of cinematic role playing is the Rule of Three. When adjudicating the dangers presented in this book, be aware of what level of realism you as a DM are looking to provide. In a realistic, brutal setting, allowing only one ability check or save to overcome the obstacle is acceptable. The more adventurous but still rather gritty feeling is achieved by allowing two ability checks or saves before lethal effects befall the heroes. This will give the players a real sense of danger, yet still encourage some heroic stunts. And then lastly, and for a truly high action, over the top cinematic feel, allow 3 ability checks or saves before the proverbial hammer falls on the characters. And then I do something like, for example, let's say that the party is attempting to climb a sheer cliff face to enter the Black Castle unseen. A deadly setting would see only one roll to avoid falling to one's death. In this case, it might be that one poor dexterity check would seal their fate. A setting that mixes gritty action and heroic deeds would allow 2 rolls before dropping the characters on the rocks hundreds of feet below. In this case, perhaps the climbing roll fails, so an additional strength roll is needed to hold on with their fingertips. And then lastly, in a cinematic setting of high fantasy and heroic actions, there would be at least 3 potential chances before tumbling down the rocky mountain wall. In this case, it might be that the climbing skill fails and the strength check fails, but perhaps a dexterity roll could save the falling hero as she grabs a root dangling nearby. And also roll goes in the opposite direction as well. But essentially, that's it. So after the introduction, we talk about like there's a list of conditions. Usual conditions like paralyzed, incapacitated, blinded, things like that. And also explains how each chapter is designed with there's always like a pressure gauge, like how do you add pressure to the players. There's something I always call if then, like many scenes are dangerous to traverse. The notes here describe what specific actions could cause certain consequences. Like if the players do this, then this might happen. There's also even the odds. This is basically like a randomizer. Basically, you roll a dice and you want to get evens, because if you get an odd result, something dangerous or harmful might happen to you, some kind of setback. Changes to change out the environment. And then a fumble crit table. Fumbles, if the players roll low, hurt themselves, and crits to do against enemies in that location. But yeah, I wanted to pick one of the most boring locations, and it kind of like embrace that idea. Like, how can we make plains and grasslands a little more exciting? And so, yeah. And there's other things added into here, like we added like hypothermia and being numb and stuff like that. Some of these are not just physical exhaustion, but actually come from mental exhaustion for survival and things like that. So there are some. So like numb is a mental exhaustion, basically. But anyway, a bunch of stuff's here. The other thing that actually worked out really well was we could get a lot of stock information, stock photos and things. Yeah, Drew says Open Adventures sounds more reasonable, even though Cool Name Goes Here was a funny title. Yeah, sometimes things are known for their placeholder titles. What was it? Tales of the Valiant is known as Black Flag because Black Flag was the title given to the development of Tales from the Valiant, I believe, produced by Cobalt Press. And hey, kitty. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Kind of fun. Kind of fun. All right, so let's get into this book. One of the things that really worked out well for us is that because these were environmental books, we could use a lot of stock photos of real environments without, basically zero money and great locations without having to worry about like drawing alien art or like characters and things like that. So that also helped a lot with the layout and whatnot. So really cool, and of course a little parchment and whatnot. So here we have some planes and some conditions and things that like that happen in those regions. And there's a couple of pages of it, like regional pressures, one of which is, I mean, it goes into a lot more detail, but one of the main things about plains and grasslands in this was that players may see dangers from far away, just as their enemies may see them from far away, and prepare for the encounter long before they come within possible physical contact. So there's other things here like there's weather charts, um, everything from dehydration, exposure. Uh, a lot of a lot of this is taken from the Midwest here in the country, here in the states. So there's a lot of places that are basically open plains, and in a way embracing some of the worst parts of those things. Like right here we have weather conditions like sunny and clear, partly cloudy, fog, whiteouts, drizzle, freezing rain, thunderstorms, snowstorms, dust storms, things like that. For those who don't know much about the history of the United States, we had a period of time known as the Black Blizzard, where settlers came to the United States and decided to plant, I think it was wheat, not knowing that it would basically erode the topsoil, and it turned it into something known as the Black Death. People were literally dying from breathing in the dust and whatnot. It's really cool. So these are like percentile tables for a winter, spring, summer, autumn, and then either an arid or savanna region. So, like for example, you'll never get snow on the like in a desert or scrublands area. No fog, no whiteout from the snow, things like that. But maybe not. Um, Here talk. There's some examples about or best practices for designing an open air adventure, and a lot of the things that I mentioned on the channel are actually in here too. Like one barrier to using open fields in mounted combat is this idea that a horse or centaur cannot operate in a dungeon. What does a player do with a loyal steed after entering a cave? The easy answer to mounts and dungeon crawls is simple. Instead of a dungeon crawl, create an open air place of adventure. While a classic dungeon has halls, rooms, and secret doors deep underground, the same goes for open air dungeons, but the scale is much larger. Instead of rooms, stone walls, and tapestries concealing a door, use natural barriers as a way of separating the denizens on the plains. For example, one region may house a pride of were-tigers and their feline pets. A wide river may be what keeps centaur patrols away. The centaurs may be hindered by a stony ridge to the other side, keeping them away from orc raiders. Chances are they are also separated by distance, perhaps of several miles. When creating an open air dungeon, use the methods that have become a standard: creatures, room details, treasure, traps. Expand that into a place hundreds of feet or even miles in diameter. Describe the region, including natural elements, grass, stone, trees, and water. Now replace walls, carpets, pillars, and dank ceilings. And that was just a real simple thing. This green breakout box is tricks to draw in flying creatures, because flying creatures basically have the like the ultimate advantage, the ultimate high ground on planes, and this is how um, people on the ground could defeat flying creatures in some kind of way, like camouflage, um, What we have there: camouflage, lures, right? Only the most legendary flying creatures and beings can remain aloft for hours or even days. Endurance has a limit in the mundane world. Eating adds to the need to touch upon solid ground. Using a lure is a hunter's tactic. And then, leave something down on the ground that a flying creature would have. And also patience. And then we talk about distant observations and perception checks, things like that. Flying creatures, open space, range combat. Um, Also added in mental stress. And again, whether you're doing something cinematic, gritty, or realistic, talking about how much mental stress can affect someone, how often. Basically, cinematic, you pretty much ignore mental stress, whereas in a realistic game, um, mental stress can come during any encounter or even during combat. And then we have different mental stress levels, just like the original levels of exhaustion. I made levels of mental stress for the mind. So basically, there's a loss of wisdom, and then there's an effect like shaken. Level one is shaken or shocked. Level two is distracted or forgetful. Level three is numb or paranoid. Level four is hallucinations. Level five is frightened, and level six is catatonic. And then with the loss of an ability score, wisdom, intelligence, a little intelligence in there. And then we break out into the actual planes and a little bit of a storyline. Always add some little flavor text in there just to make it kind of cool and things like that. Mm-mm-mm. I think this is a. I was trying to remember. As the sun set, our stomachs were full, and we were listening intently to the storyteller. Her apprentice was breathing light into a central stone. Images began weaving above us in the air as the storyteller coached the young girl with slight nods and subtle hand gestures. The story that she wove spoke of deep and nearly infinite snowfields. She spoke of winds that would spin down from the clouds. Her words and pictures drew us into a world of dust and mud, grass and rivers. All of this stretched as far as the eyes could see and possibly beyond. And it goes on. But little storyteller. And of course, it ends with the storyteller had finished her tale, but ours was just about to begin. And so each these pages, or maybe even I guess you could call them double pages. Let's see if I can get the double page here. Give me the double page spread. Oh, I don't have access to the double page spread. Oh well. Oh well. Yes, I do. Sure. I don't. Double page spread. Why isn't it spreading like the doubles? Oh well. Oh well. Here we go. Actually, let me stop here with the brambles, and then I gotta see what you guys have to say. Drew says, I really don't fumble botch tables. Damn it! Now most of these are very much like let's see if I can find it. So they're not those gonzo tables, which is like your 10-foot spear, you stab yourself in the back. Nothing like that. Uh, but every one of these pages will start out with a little bit of flavor text just to get you into like what does it look like, what it's about. There, like I said before, there's a pressure gauge here for the players. Like maybe the players get pushed into this region, or the weather starts to change, or a lot of like foreshadowing, so you as a dungeon master could use it. We have our if then, like for example, brambles are considered difficult terrain, and in fifth edition that's as far as it goes, and my intention was to make this go a little bit deeper, well actually quite a bit deeper. The mechanical hazards cover a 30 by 30 foot square region, and of course you can make them larger and larger and things like that. How much damage you suffer, how hard is it to go through the brambles in the first place. And remember, all of this isn't about it's about creating a problem, not necessarily creating a a wall, if that makes sense. So, for example, the players could actually use this to their advantage, and if they're creative enough, hell yeah. So the fumble crit table, and I don't know why I like to call it the fumble crit, but um, when if the players roll low enough, D20, you roll a one, something like this might happen to them, and then a crit is if the players crit, this might happen to the enemy. So it's basically that's why it's called a fumble crit table. Um, and then there's some more D4s, some are D6s or D8s. I think this is a D6 table. And they were honestly, this was written to fill in. What was it? What do you say? It was written for publishing, so we had a gap of space and enough word distance, so I was able to fill. Like here's a lethal choke, entangles legs like the brambles, face planting, caught, marked by scent, or pulled under. Like for example, marked by scent, the vines and leaves deposit a residue on the victim. Now, creatures that track by scent have advantage to follow the trail of the subject. A wisdom nature check will uncover this anomaly. So it's not the dumb like, oh, your shoelace is tied together, or instead of stabbing them in the back, you caress their back lightly. Nothing like that. Like even caught, a weapon or item becomes trapped in the overgrowth. It costs a full action to stop and retrieve it. Hey, my spear got caught in the overgrowth and whatnot. And there's a lot of these out here, right? Each page or double page spread has their own thing. Broken Earth, again, trying to encapsulate something here on the plains and whatnot. Heat exhaustion, heat stroke, oil slicks, heat lightning, tar pits, things like that. Burial grounds out there in the on the plains, and some events that might happen. So some of it is arcane, like resisting the Umbra, disturbing spirits and whatnot, and some appeasements. There's some appeasements and things like descriptors. So the, right here, I just put something like the following are descriptors. Use them to shape the challenge that PCs must face. Some are mental images, others are thin as smoke. Some are horrors made flesh, and then there's little things like number 6, glowing skulls dart and spin around the living. Some have the visage of those the living once killed. Or number 9, skeletal hands reach from the earth, grasping at those above them. Number 1, bestial spirits pounce and charge from the shadows. Maws filled with dagger-sized teeth and breath of cold spittle, whatnot. Um, Trying to pack in as many alliterations as I could. And then how do you deal with them? Like for example, a charisma saving throw can face down the evil, ask forgiveness, repeat an ancient mantra, or express courage that may not be felt. Or number 6, expend a bonus action to reinforce one's willpower and physical prowess to resist the dark powers for 1 round. Or number 7, expend a spell slot to charge oneself or another ally to resist a danger for 1 round. Or close your eyes and walk blind to ignore the oncoming horrors and resist further harm for 1 round. And that's basically like an appeasement, like, hey, if you figure this thing out and there's a way to figure it out, you can do some intelligence checks or things like that. And then the pain in the shadow, what kind of damage you might suffer, like psychic or paralytic, necrotic, deafness, slashing and cutting. And you can basically tables to make up your own burial ground encounter. We got burning fields. That's a very common thing for us out here in the Midwest when the ground gets dry, and we have those seasonal fires and whatnot. And what happens there? Some pressure. Talk about breathing smoke, walls of heat, all that kind of stuff. Navigation in the smoke. Fire, the burning fields themselves from like lightning, or the after effects of somebody casting a lightning bolt or fireball. The blistering heat, fumble crit table. Someone fails to save, they roll a one, or you punch an enemy in the throat or something. And what do we have here? Lung full of soot, smell of smoke. Um, yeah, like smell of smoke. The victim's clothing is saturated with the smell of smoke and ash. It is nearly impossible to get the smell out. Only prestidigitation or other magical effects will remove the scent. Otherwise, the victim is easy to smell, being tracked with advantage by smell alone. Throwing away the affected clothing is an option. And that's something very simple. Dry heaves, collapsed lung, constant cough, um, blinded by ash, set on fire, confused, raw throat, right? Raw throat cannot verbalize for 1d4 minutes. Don't get sick, you guys. Don't get dark. Unable to breathe, tearing eyes, and even on a d12, roll twice and combine. Talk about feeding on the oxygen in the area, things like that. Another one of my favorites I like to throw into the books, the chromatic fields. But which the should have been a like in that sentence. Guess I actually saw the whole sentence. Oh yeah, yeah. I think I've seen. I don't know why, because I know when I'm gonna have to talk to these guys, because I I don't. Am I looking at an old? I think I'm looking at an old file, and I don't do the editing a lot. Like I said, I overwrite, and if there's some mistakes in here, I'm just like, damn it. And that happens when you're an editor, right? I mean, when you try to edit your own things, you often don't see your own edits, and I mean, I'm sorry, your your eyes pass over your own things that should be edits because you've seen it so many times, and you're just like, my eyes are asleep. Um, there's a visual trick out there which has there's some like words where it's like two thes and people miss it. What the heck? No, no, no. There we go. Not MS, whatever the hell it is. Anyway, chromatic fields or chromatic whatever. What did I call it? Chromatic fields. Yeah, colorful flowers, things like that. You gotta have them. Gotta have them be a little bit arcane, have an arcane nature to it. Black spores, and these are all different kind of spores that happen. The idea of the chromatic fields and chromatic like spores is that if you run through them, you will release the spores into the air that might have one or more effects related to them. So the idea is that there might be a battle near the field or on the field or standing on top of flat stones that might be scattered throughout the field. And if you knock somebody into them or you decide to make a run for it or cover your mouth or something, or the spores might land on your flesh. And there's different ones: brown, white, pink, purple, blah, blah, blah. This one's kind of silly. Purple spores, which cause a polymorph. Removing the spores. There's remedies for removing the spores, like acid, alcohol, brine, charcoal, milk, oil, urine, water. Get the stuff off you. And of course, die rolls to figure if you could figure it out if you want to add that in. Um, Flash floods and floodplains. Optional rules for being held underwater, which is I've always found really weird. Like holding somebody by the throat and holding them underwater, or having your leg, jammed in between a rock or a tree branch or something, and it got twisted and you're underwater, seems to be a pretty adventurous cinematic event that happens a lot in movies and television and books and novelizations and whatnot. And I'm like, how come we don't have that in the game? So that was it. To be honest with you, it actually goes all the way back to making fun and talking about do healing like can you drink a healing potion if it's frozen solid in the deep north? And people talking about making popsicles, making popsicles out of healing potions and whatnot. And we were having some fun, and then I just expanded it off of that, like, huh, let's think about this. Anyway, flash floods, debris, dry riverbeds, and maybe some storms might happen, and floodwaters, dams breaking, drowning, chaotic waters, concussions, things like that. Um, Alex was kind of pissed off at me because I added in like fog and rain. Very, very difficult to emulate with artwork and whatnot. But if you take a look at this image, there's a tree slightly in the foreground in the fog, and then there's some kind of tentacled monster or beast that's taller than a tree but kind of looks tree-like in the fog and whatnot. But he was like, he's like, how do you visually show rain? And it's pretty difficult to show rain because usually we see rain due to the background, and he was like, it's just going to look like a smudge. But he found out a good way to do the thing. Anyway, talk about fog and not being able to, if you can't see your allies or enemies, you can't target them with magic because some things require you to be able to see them. And then light fog and heavy fog and patchy fog and whatnot. Here we have herds, and we're only, I don't know, where are we at, page 30. I was like, I'm gonna make this one of the biggest books, which I did. but whatever. Herds, hiding in herds, getting trampled by herds, leading enemies into herds, that kind of stuff. Random herds, making up random herds. Herds as a group, damaging a herd and the herd splitting around you, that kind of thing. Herd types. You roll D8 for like what kind of animals are they? Elephants or mammoths, elks, bison, rhinoceroses, ostriches, kangaroos, whatever. Body sizes for them, herd movement, whether they have incredible leaping ability or blindingly fast in short spurts, or natural swimmers, have amazing balance like goats or something. Marathon runners, what kind of color they have, what are their patterns, and some of their unique herd abilities that maybe tribal people might know that those animals have a unique herd ability, like extreme sensory range or sensitive to magic. Predatory paranoia. The herd is always on alert. The slightest movement or noise and the herd will flee, and they seem to notice everything. Pack tactics, diviners, spirit walkers, predict weather, that kind of stuff. As a herd, like the herd is just like, we just happen to know. And then you as PCs, because like, we'll follow the herd, because hell. Hills and valleys, angled cover, heights, loose stones, shifting earth, hill types, making up your own hill types, and there's some desires in there, like a ramp, rise, and ridge. I just made that up. Ramps are easy; they're only DC 8. A rise is DC 11, and a ridge is DC 14 to scale them, and that kind of stuff. Caves and tunnels underneath. Uh, Arid hill details, floral hill details, fumble crit. You fall down the hill. And some details. So a lot of these are like tables. If you'll notice, it's not a lot of like die rolls in terms of rolling like D20s or something like that. It's basically like, okay, what's the hill look like? Here's a D10 list to make it more interesting. So, oh, that hill looks like this hill. Like these hills are just very large mushrooms, or soft green grass hides the deceptive angle of this hill, or colorful wildflowers crest and fall like waves on these rolling hills, or each hill is just a recently fallen tree, or the hills are the results of a plentiful harvest made up of thousands of tons of corn, maize, wheat, sugarcane, or other crops or orchard materials, things like that. So every hill doesn't could actually hills could actually be man made and stuff. Just having fun with that. Um, Rivers and streams. Again, here's some of that artwork. You could see like moss covered hills, and the water has eroded away the steep angles. Um, mm, mm, mm. There's a meta story in in this in these in this flavor text about a guy named Artemis Hale and his group that have gone out and traveled, and it's basically a dungeon. It's basically an adventure group that's really not interested in fighting things, and this Artemis Hale person has wanted to travel the world and can't help himself but keep traveling further and further. And so, and this person keeps meeting new people along the way, and other people pass away, more people show up, and things like that. And so it's kind of fun. We kind of had a little fun with it because there's little details in there that, I mean, game effect, no. But if you're someone who's like, I want to read everything, there is a storyline, and it came about unconsciously because it wasn't on purpose, but the three of us were adding things into it, and somebody would say something like, "Hey, why don't you add this name?" And I was like, "Why?" They were like, "Well, it's one of my old PCs," and they were like, "Oh, okay." And then somebody else would go, "Oh, that character died in the game," and they're like, "Why don't we have this person die on the adventure that they're traveling through?" Right? And they're like, "Okay, sure." And then stuff like things like that happen. So tall grass is even a thing about height and ranged attacks and perception checks, survival, animals hiding down and beasts hiding down in there, uh, wind and weather. I mean, and it goes on and on and on. And like I said, I'm a bit of an overwriter, so it's like, all right, Jackson, keep it down now. Gusts, rain, wind shear, thunderstorms, winter's wrath, cold, frostbite, snow, tracks in snow versus falling snow. So if it's already snowed, you can follow people's tracks. But if it's snowing, your tracks probably will get covered up. So it's that kind of thing. Tripping, ice, hidden crevices, blizzards, frozen liquids, and there's this funny part that's pretty much started all this stuff. Most common liquids will freeze solid in Arctic climates. These can include healing potions, drinking water, and other liquids that might be of value. The GM must decide if the liquid can still be used once melted or if it has any reduced effects. Note that most glass containers will break if the liquid inside freezes. This may also apply to spells that create liquid materials, such as grease or create water or summon water elemental. Flames can melt snow and ice, although once the heat is removed, additional hazards may be created from slick, icy surfaces. And try to make it as simple as possible. Uh, I agree with there. Drew mentions that is why it is always good to have other people read it before publishing. Hell's yes. I think people they're not here to see me. Yep. Yeah, I know. Well, I'm gonna disagree with you there, Drew. I think you are interested in exploration, just not the physical type. If I can guess correctly, if I know you, and I know I do, you are more interested in delving into the exploration of themes and such. Drew says no. Only containers holding water will break since other liquids do not expand in the cold. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What is it? Strangely enough, water does expand when frozen. Most other things contract. I think even the human body contracts a little bit in the cold. But whatever. Something for players to worry about was the concept there. You're purr. Yeah, kitty. Okay, you can't. No, you can't type because you don't have thumbs. All right, all right. So yes, themes and social stuff, but usually people mean exploration with the wilderness. Of course they do. They do. Show me the kittens. I know. But All right, let me let you guys get out of here before I show off the kitten. Uh, but yeah, anyway, we're down here in the appendix. That's the end of the thing. Back in ye olden days of fifth edition, when they used to care about backgrounds and storytelling, we always had an additional background in here. This one is a plains runner, and suggested characteristics. Also, the background is good for creating NPCs that live in the region. And then we also have other things like, of course, we have the bonds, flaws, ideals, and then new weapons and equipment like a bolo or lasso, uh, bolo, boomerang. I think, yeah. Okay, here we go. Bolo, boomerang, lasso. Go ahead, kitty. Go. She wants to get down, or he wants to get down. Sorry. Uh, yep. Bolo's basically a net. Lasso basically using a net with a rope attached to it. Boomerang, a D4 thing that comes back to you that does blunt damage. A meteor hammer, spring loaders, things like that. It's some images of said items. A meteor hammer, basically a heavy item attached to a chain or a rope that you can swing around your head. And then Appendix 2 for pets, mounts, and familiars, and using mounts, um, traveling with mounts, uh, doing things like using your mounts as hit point sponges, and a little breakout box like um, and best practices, things like for additional actions. Each active pet and mount is another member of the party. For example, 3 hunters, each with a hunting dog and a bird of prey, will act as 9 adventurers. The additional die rolls may slow down the action or become unwieldy with some groups or players. Consider pushing the pets and mounts to the background or having a single roll apply to all of their actions. So, yeah, just worry about that. Hit point sponges. While it may be easy to place a pet or mount in the way of an attack, doing this multiple times will most certainly cause the animal to rebel, run away, fight any restraint, or just ignore instructions completely. The pet or animal may even suffer from despair, having no motivation to act, or even if healed, no motivation to act, even if healed after each encounter. While the healing process will remove the physical pain, the psychological trauma will remain. Others will see such behavior from an owner Others who see such behavior from an owner may refuse to assist or deal with those who mistreat valued creatures. Remember, in the classic Wild West mythos, just stealing a horse was cause for hanging. So, and it's idea sure, players may go, "Hey, my horse has 25 hit points. I'm gonna just use it as a meat shield because it's a game." You say, "Well, you're actually role playing, so you might not want to do that." And the fact that other people may see that happen. So and then unique versus ubiquity. In this setting, are pets and or mounts unique to the characters or the norm in this world? Uh, and or are mounts are common. NPCs and creatures should also have them as well. Gnolls may track prey with dire jackals and ride hyena wargs. Goblins could ride giant vultures. Druids could breed trained beetles or wasps. And it's basically like, the players may try to use this as an advantage, but if the rest of the world is also riding on things or they've got pets and stuff, and then just using them in the background. Mounts and vehicles, travel pacing, riding and mounted combat. Here's a breakout box for actions that you can instruct your pet to do. Blah, blah, blah. Training and the training process. And you have to train them in a number of you if you want to get in super detail, like you could train your pet Black Panther for some of these things like come, guard, help, fetch, deliver, patrol, scavenge, perform, and the training process right here. Common mounted stunts like drawn and quartered, throw a rider, untamed mount, charging with a weapon, the flying leap, the classic I'm riding on the back of the giant elephant jumping to the other person, the flying tackle, getting dragged, being disrupted while you're riding, the classic arm scoop, That's where you're riding at full speed and your ally standing still, and you use a whip by and grab them with the arm scoop. Um, the animal handling skill for like breeding, care, and then what happens if you fail some of those checks? Healing animals, food and water, behavioral traits for pets and mounts as well. For example, I think is a D20 thing, and each of these has a benefit and a flaw. Like playful, wants nothing more than to have fun and do tricks. Most sentient beings find this animal amusing and may be distracted by its performances. The flaw, and the flaw is has a hard time sitting still, will make noise or disturb others for attention. Actually, just should be a colon. So each of these has a benefit and a flaw. Loyal, sensitive, stubborn, divine, focused, affectionate, aggressive, arcane, stuff like that. The stubborn one has a mind of its own. Benefit resists nearly all deceptions, illusions, or tricks to draw it away from the owner. But the flaw takes extra effort to get this pet or mount to do anything. There's some fun stuff here, just to, everybody's got a horse. Here it is talking about the death of a pet and talking about, being sensitive to that involved because pets have an effect to us in real life, and player characters get recovering and getting a new pet, acquiring a pet or mount, of course, barding and protecting them, um, chase rules, contest and chase, theories of mind, and closing the distance. Basically, the PC's rolling. If they're chasing someone down, your successes get you closer. Their successes keep you far away, and whoever gets to the numerical value first wins. Basically, wins what they were trying to achieve. Random chase obstacles, making up your own, some descriptors and things like that, like a stack of fallen trees and branches, a very wide sinkhole, exposed tangled roots, a few dry rocks across a flowing stream, things like that. So, like, those might be obstacles, and if you want to have some die rolls for them, or what happens to people if they fail, then here's another table, like knocked unconscious or stunned, or no bonus action next turn, or disarmed, or dropped an important item, or takes 1d6 bludgeoning damage, or the next attack against the victim has advantage, things like that. Become blinded, blah, 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 blah. Riding through trees and all that kind of stuff. And then I think there's a monster. Yep, yep. A Chaluk. And multi-trunked Groot slang. Don't be don't be um don't be making friends with them. Plains worms, and then random details and a bunch of adding into if the book wasn't enough for you, just adding some features into it. And all the cinematic environs books are kind of like this, where it's roll tables, um, ideas, flavor text. Like here we have like random flavor details for horizon, like something you see on the horizon. A black smoke and a line of fire moves in a wave across the landscape. Make a nature skill check to determine the nearest water source. Or you see the bisecting line of snowfall and the pristine white this entails. Make a survival skill check to prepare a camp for freezing cold, high winds, and falling snow. Or a distant pillar of colored smoke. Make a history skill check to recall the cultural significance of the colors in the smoke and things like that. And of course, these also lead to like asking questions like who's there and who lives out here and what's there. Ephemeral details, other details, tables. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for letting me show this off. And as a matter of fact, let me go back to the cover. Come on. There we go. But along with this, there's also the idea that that critical hit publishing. Um, let's see if I can share this back out for the drive-through. Oh, each of the books is like that. Enough already. I get it. If she'll come, if Brutus, come on, come here, come here. What? Yeah, yeah, come on, come on. You don't want to come over? Oh well. Uh-oh. I bad tidings. We just had storms. I had some tech issues because my camera reset, and I was just like, why is it still blurry? And I got to reset it and stuff like that, and the whole 9 yards, man. It's kind of funny, and I guess the kitty is just like, I'm not doing it right now because I'm not doing it. Oh man, but yeah. So for those who just are interested in this kind of thing, um, uh, forget buying it. Add these things into the game. You know, Arctic, desert. Here we go. Arctic lands, desert wastes, mountains, aerial reaches. This one's just all about aerial things like castles and flying through the air and clouds and storms and winds and vacuum and that kind of stuff. The survival book is literally we took real survival techniques and then extrapolated them out into the fantasy realm. It's kind of cool. It's pretty big. That's why it's a little bit more. It's a hefty book, 80 plus pages, I believe, if I remember correctly. That's why it's out $10. I don't know. I think the price could be dropped a bit. Aquatic Depths, and then Blasted Lands and Grasslands. The two books missing in here are the Subterranean book and a rainforest book. Rainforest, so it would be like regular forests, jungles, rainforests, and a swamps book. Where's the swampy swamp book? Hmm. Oh, there it is. Wetlands. There it is. Wetlands. Mm-mm-mm. And Call of Cthulhu Survival Bundle. What's this? 34.95. Oh, it's all put together. You will save 21.65, and it's all of them combined together. Yep, yep, yep. The big bundle. Okay. Yep, yep, yep. Yeah. Oh well. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. There we go. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much for letting me um uh Weird Wilderness. Huh. Oh, for Call of Cthulhu. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Special bundle product contains the following titles for Call of Cthulhu. Wow. I did not know it's part of that. I need to. Oh, and the pipeline is in there too. Sweet. In the fall of 1986, contact was lost with Exxon pumping station number 31 near Telegraph Creek, BC, Canada. British Columbia. Oh well. Um, all right, enough of this. I gotta let you guys go. Peace and tranquility. Thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much for letting me pat myself on the back here. It came up. Sorry, sorry. Yeah, no. She her desire to scramble up my leg has dwindled. So yeah, kitten, right meow, right meow. Come on, kitties. Hey, yeah, come here. You're literally 3 feet away from me. Oh well. All right, guys. Have a great one. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for letting me go off. Thank you, Drew, for just being engaged. I know this isn't your thing, but that's all right. You know. Well, anyway, we'll get into other conversations. But I appreciate your attention to the channel, and I appreciate your attention to what goes on here. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much, and have yeah, you can actually hear them. Anyway, have a great day. Thank you very much, and I will see thee later. Be creative, you guys. Just get out there and and change the world. Bye.